Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, July 18th. We are coming to you tonight remotely. So we'll get right down to business. First order of business on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes in our packet. We have the business meeting minutes from June 21st, as well as the executive session minutes from June 20th and June 21st. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes? Anybody want to make a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Teresa. Do I have a second? Seconded by Kate. So we are remote tonight, so I need to do a roll call vote. So in order that I see you, Kate?
Yeah. Aye.
Teresa?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, so that passes 5-0. Second thing on the agenda is correspondence. Do we have any correspondence this evening, Dr. Thompson?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so moving right along is the warrants. So this week I signed warrants in the amount of $1,372,345.78, $1,085,859.13, $22,441.05, $162,193.02, $16,064.57, $26,289.46, $892,797.36, $4,629.50, $51,400.38, $146,445.56, $5,911.90, $451,602.98, and $35,313.98 for a grand total of $4,273,294.67. Are there any questions on the warrant report this evening? Fabulous. Okay, so moving on to our next agenda item is public comment. Since we are remote this evening, a reminder to the community for remote participation. All people who participate remotely in public comment period must call to register with the superintendent's office by noon the day of our meeting to receive a link for the meeting. I know several people with public comment have gathered tonight in one location, but I do have 4 people that were pre-registered or were registered for public comment this evening. So I'll call them in the order that I have them on my list. And then those people should come at that room to come before the screen to speak. You will have 3 minutes to speak. And then public comment does not last for more than 30 minutes, which with 4 people, we should not reach that. So at 7:08 p.m., I will declare public comment open. The first person that I have registered to speak is Ms. Jean Taylor.
Anne Marie, Jean Taylor is not in the room.
Oh, okay. Do we have Jean online? I don't think we do.
Nope. No, we do not.
Okay. Hopefully I have the correct list. So the second person I have is Mr. Jerry Miller.
Right there, Jerry. Okay.
Good evening, members of the school committee and Dr. Thompson. I appreciate the opportunity to address the school committee in reference to the naming of the Coakley Middle School. As a proud graduate of Norwood High School class of '65 and the president of the Norwood High School Alumni Association, I have seen firsthand the pride taken in Norwood and its schools. About 15 years ago, there was a drive to replace the old high school.
Jerry, I don't think they can hear you. They're shaking their heads no.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, you can?
Yep.
We're good.
I'm
You
sorry.
don't like what I'm saying?
No.
I'm shaking my head no, it's something else entirely. I apologize. This is the problem with
Okay.
remote.
Okay, about 15 years ago, there was a drive to replace the whole school on the hill with a newer, more modern building with a greater opportunity to serve our students at NHS. There were many discussions on to either save the old or build a new, but in the long run, we had a new state-of-the-art high school. I bring this point up as it is a very divisive decision on both sides expressing their rationale. When the vote was taken, the final was there was a new high school going up at the behind the new old high school. The Norwood High School Alumni Association proposed the last hurrah, come say goodbye to Old Norwood High. Over 4,000 people attended the day presentation with 2,000 at the night program. Fire laws prevented us from selling more tickets. We could have sold another 2,000 tickets. Again, my point is Norwood residents take pride in their schools, and the Coakley Middle School is now being constructed as an amazing educational complex. I had the privilege to attend the Norwood Public Schools while Dr. Coakley was superintendent. I saw firsthand how he brought pride and leadership to our school system. I also played basketball under Coach Jim Savage. In my tenure with the Norwood Rec Department, I was able to work with Jim on many projects. I feel proud to say that I knew both of these gentlemen and hope their names continue to remain in the school that they've helped build. My second thought, and I apologize if it's already part of the curriculum, is using this as a teaching opportunity. A neighboring community introduces their students to their school in the immediate neighborhood in the 3rd grade, and in the 5th, 7th, and 9th, they continue their introduction to the school, each time expanding their teacher levels. They learn the history of their school, their neighborhoods, their businesses, the town buildings, and the government. It's a great opportunity to inform our students of what Norwood is and who our residents are. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see Dr. Coakley's name on the new middle school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And if that was me shaking my head, I do want to apologize. My son asked me a question right as we muted, and I shook my head. So that was me. I apologize. The next person I have on the registration list is Mr. Charles Donahue.
Good. First of all, I want to thank you and the school committee for volunteering your time, and for Dr. Thompson. I just retired after 9 years on the Westwood School Committee, so I have a pretty good feel for what you're going through. My only problem is you stole away our top person, John Cianciarulo, who's sitting here next to me. He was the backbone of our school committee. I love coming to this building. My father was chairman of the Selectmen 1941 when he had to go to World War II and serve in the South Pacific. One of the happiest days of his life when he was chairman of the Norwood School Committee, and he came home and he said, "We just hired the best superintendent in Massachusetts, Phil Coakley. He's unbelievable. We're so lucky to get him." My father loved education. So he came in. I'm a 1961 graduate of Norwood High, class president for 3 years. The education I got at Norwood High, I didn't realize until I got accepted at Brown University, and I graduated. And 4 other friends of mine after me went to Brown University and graduated, and they all played ice hockey. And at Norwood High, we learned to be great students and become Division I college hockey players, and one of us played in the Frozen Four. That's how good our education at Norwood was, in the education and also the sports programs he put in. When I came from college one day, there were kids sitting at the bus stop with suitcases. And I said, "What's with this?" They said, "There's a new guy in music in Norwood. The kids in the 3rd grade are learning to play the violin." I talked to Paul Alberta. He said, "I sat down with Dr. Coakley, who said, 'How do we get the best music program in the state?' And Paul said, 'How about the best in the country?'" The Norwood High Orchestra was asked by the United States State Department to do a tour of the capitals of Europe. The orchestra from the European countries could not believe. They thought this was a professional orchestra, that they were high school kids that Paul Alberta put together. There's 30 Norwood graduates who have played in major orchestras in the world. Last year, when we had the Boston Pops on the Common, we had a duet. A kid played one of the instruments in a duet with the Boston Pops. The kid in the duet graduated from Norwood High this year. So Phil Coakley brought a unique program to Norwood. It was transformative in what he did for Norwood. What I would like to ask, I think it's fantastic that there are people in Norwood who want to name things after people who they respect. That's great. I think that's wonderful and should be encouraged. My concern, though, is that we don't dishonor other people who the old timers of us felt created the system that these people moved to Norwood for. So you don't go out and dishonor this man, which that's what the old timers believe is happening. just because you want to honor new people, which we should do. Thank you very much for your time and your service.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. So the last person that I have listed to speak this evening is Miss Sarah Quinn.
Hi, thanks for hosting me again. So I just wanted to provide an update from my last appearance when I shared with you the petitions that had been circulating around keeping the name as the Copley Middle School. We are now up to about 1,350 signatures, and we continue to gather signatures almost daily, and we will provide you with the final count before your vote. And I just had a few thoughts after I left last time, since I hadn't written anything down. I, of course, thought of all the things I meant to say in the middle of the night. I want to start by saying I'm proud to live in a town that acknowledges and remembers members, whether it's a dedicated public servant like Walter Dempsey, I'm looking at the beautiful bandstand, or enthusiastic readers who wanted to memorialize their daughter with a gift like the library, or passionate educators like Mr. Oldham, right? And even our favorite patriot, Aaron Giles. We certainly can, look around the corners of this town and see that we've remembered many who have come before us and done well. More recently, about 20 years ago, the Norwood School Committee voted to name 2 buildings after 2 wonderful superintendents who had really led our schools for years and certainly shaped my education here, Mr. Savage and Dr. Copley. I find it disrespectful to consider naming the new middle school anything other than Copley, particularly as I campaigned very hard for a new Copley Middle School, and at no point was renaming the building discussed. I do believe that there are many worthy people that we could name a new facility for. Mr. Diggs, certainly, Mr. Yusevich, Mrs. Donahue. There are many, many leaders in our community that have shaped both our town politics and education and culture. But I don't believe any one of those people would want to contribute to addition in terms of subtraction. And that's what we'd be doing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. So that concludes all of the registered speakers for public comment this evening. So at 7:18 p.m., I will declare public comment closed. Okay. So I think, and actually, so normally and within a remote public comment period, we would, oh, there he goes. John left. Okay. Just wanted to double check. We usually do, for the public's awareness, we haven't done a remote meeting in quite a while. If anyone does join for public comment via the link, we do ask that they sign off after the public comment period is closed. They are obviously certainly welcome to watch the remainder of the meeting on the NCM live stream. But just because this is our business meeting, we do ask that the people who have joined us for public comment sign off after they have said their piece. Okay, so moving along to the next item on the agenda is appearances. So first on our appearances, we have Mr. Eli Norris here to talk to us about the food services report.
All right, hello. Thank you for having me. I have a presentation that I'll pull up. It's also been a while since I've done a remote meeting here. Lunch has to be prepared on site. Can't do remote lunch.
That would not taste very good.
Are you sure?
Here we go. Let's try this one.
If anybody could do it, you could do it, Eli.
All right, so I think I'm showing a presentation now.
Yep.
All right, so again, thank you for allowing us the time to talk today. And just an information session to give you some information about the school lunch program. Just wrapped up the school year. We're very proud to be in Norwood. The staff is all very proud to feed the kids. It seems like it's been all hands on deck since the COVID outbreak began. And we've been serving more meals, more food than we can even sometimes get in house. We're preparing it and sending it right out with the kids. So it's just a quick recap on the past year and what's going on in our world. As of today, we still do not know about next year's meals. We don't know if it'll be universal free or not. All signs indicate that it will be, but it has not been finalized or approved yet. So just as a recap, during COVID time, they were free on a federal level. This past school year, they were free in just a handful of states, Massachusetts being one of them. And that was due to additional state budget funding. There was I believe, a state hearing yesterday on school meals in Massachusetts, but I don't know the outcome of it, and Google search is not finding me any good information. So more information to come soon about next year's or this upcoming school year's meals. But as of now, we do not know if they'll be universally free or not. Regardless if they are or are not free, we always encourage families to fill in the free and reduced applications. The free and reduced application will be available probably in the middle to late August. It'll be available online on the district's website on the food service tab. It'll be available at the Savage Center in the food service office, room 215. And it'll also be available at the different schools in the front offices. So even if meals are universal free, which again, we do not know yet, but even if they are, we encourage families to apply. There could be other benefits that they can receive, such as a reduction in the busing fees or testing fees or Chromebook insurance, those other kind of different programs. Sometimes there's a benefit as well. We've also applied, or we're in the process of applying for CEP, which is a community eligibility provision. Again, this is another thing that's not quite yet finalized yet, but it's going through the process and it's looking good. So this would be, this would also make meals universally free. If the meals are not universally free on the state level, and if we're approved for CEP, some of our schools would then have universal free meals, but not necessarily all of them. So this one is a little bit trickier, and we don't have all the information yet. So I don't want to go too deep into it, other than we're going to do everything we can to feed as many kids as we can for the families and the students. But we don't have all the details yet. We should hopefully know something by, I'd say within 2-3 weeks, we should have some more information. So these are just some pictures of the past year. So we've gone back to doing more and more fun events in the cafeterias. So some of the programs that we reintroduced again are Mood Boost. And this follows 6 different moods that students feel, whether it's happy or smart or confident, and then which foods kind of tie in to those different, which foods have, which nutrients that lead to these kind of behaviors or feelings. Student Choice is a program that we run at the high school, and this is a concept where it's 2 competing dishes, 2 competing stations. The students sample the items, and then they vote with either a laptop that we have set up, or you can text to vote as well. And then the winning station is served in the cafeteria. And Discovery Kitchen is the program that we used at the elementary level. And again, it's to show kids the different foods, get them sometimes get their hands dirty with things, and get them introduced to different things. The Impact Norwood collaboration, that should not be there. That was from the old slide. But Kelsey, who was our dietitian, she worked with Impact Norwood on a few different seminars and things that they did. We do have a new resident dietitian, Shayna, who has hit the ground running, talking with nurses and students and teachers and families, and she'll be doing more of these kind of programs as well. So this was our 5th year of doing a food service scholarship. This was a initiative that was brought up by the food service staff. They wanted to do something to give back to a graduating senior. So this is the 5th year that we're into this. The picture on the right was us at Norwood Day, where we set up a booth, had some giveaways, and were able to raise some funds for the scholarship. Just a quick recap of this past year's financials. So overall, we did just over 540,000 meals. bringing in 2.3 million in revenue. Our food costs was 806,000. The rebates subtracted 185,000 from the food cost. Our labor cost at 907, direct costs at 67, fees at 100. So we ended the year at positive 607,000, which is by all stretch of the imagination just a fantastic, very successful year. And it's allowed us to reinvest into the program. We're looking at adding more staffing and also equipment. We've been able to refresh the vast majority of our equipment and looking to get more efficient equipment and equipment that can make things faster for the kids and different items as well. So just a quick 9-year history. So back in 2015, those are the numbers all the way to the left. And this current school year is all the way to the right. So you can see last year in 22 was the most successful year. So that year, the food cost wasn't quite too crazy yet. And also the reimbursements from the federal level were higher, which led to the increased profit of last year's program. This year, I think everyone has seen at the grocery store, the food costs have gone up. But our meal counts have held strong. And our profit this past school year, again, was very successful. So looking at next school year, we have our budget for the 23-24 school year. This is kind of going on the thought that meals will be universal free. Again, we don't know. It hasn't come out yet. But we have to submit a budget to the state. And this is the model that we went with. So the budget for next year is very similar to this past school year's actual numbers. Where we think we will end up. And then on the left side is what we thought this previous school year's budget was going to be. So we thought that would be a good thing to look at. Again, there's still a lot of unknowns, but it does look again to be another financially successful school year. So getting ready, we are in summertime. We are offering meals at the Coakley Middle School. The meals are free to all kids and teens, 18 and not younger. In the program, we're doing breakfast and lunch daily. Breakfast is from 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock, and then lunch is from 11 to 12:45. It's consumed on site, and I think we're planning on doing around 150 lunches a day. That's what we thought when we were setting up the program. And we're doing just around 320 lunches a day. So it's a great program, certainly for the campers and the students that are in that area. But if there's no cost to families, there's no cost to Norwood. Another federally funded program. So we certainly encourage everyone to swing on by the Coakley. Just look out for the the construction that's going on in the background, but there's plenty of space. Lastly, we are always looking for more people to join our team. Our staff is predominantly, they're all Norwood, residents. Kids, they have kids in the system. They're very happy to work in the food service department for the schools. They love making food. They love serving the kids. So if this sounds like you, please certainly swing on by, shoot us an email or give us a call. So as we go on to the next school year, again, it's going to be waiting to see what happens with the funding, with the state funding, if meals are universal free or not. Continuing to reinvest into the kitchens and the staff, and then continuing to bring back more fun and engaging programs to the cafeterias and into the classrooms as best we can. And with that, are there any questions?
Thanks, Eli. Does anybody have any questions on the presentation tonight? What? As always, fantastic job. I think I actually do have one question. I hate to bring it up because I hope we're universal free for a really long time. But what we're obviously in a really great place because the universal free has been making, freeing things up. I mean, really grateful that we've been able to, we have a lot of that equipment upgraded with, the monies that are available each year. what are we looking at if we don't go universal free? Like, we're going to just basically kind of come back down to where we were pre 2021, 2022, where everything kind of spiked up and level off, or do we anticipate that it will be ugly?
Someone always has to bring us down to reality.
Sorry.
So in obviously in a lot of other states, so I think it was only 5 states did universal free meals this past year, Massachusetts being one of them. But in one of our neighbor states, Rhode Island, they saw, I think it was like a 20% drop in their school meal participation from pre-COVID levels. So it was not even a dip from like our peak COVID time, but it was a 20% drop from pre-COVID. So in the event that we were to go back to, free, reduced, and paid, we would certainly be hitting up the parents to fill in the free and reduced applications as much as possible. I think there's still a lot of families that qualify, but they don't fill in the application for fear of, negative stigma or whatever it may be, or maybe a language barrier. So that would be like the first, and even now it's an ongoing thing that we're doing, but that would be like a main force. In the event that it was back to free, reduced, and paid, and if the meal counts did drop as they did in Rhode Island, right now we have as Karen knows, we have a good little nest egg. So we could certainly sustain our programs and not have to worry about replacing equipment. It's just keeping staffing and keeping, the food trucks coming in and the food going out to the kids. So in the short term, we would be okay, but then we would certainly have to revisit, how we operate moving forward. One of the items that would have to then be addressed is the price of school lunch. So right now, pre-COVID, I think we were at $2.75 for a lunch at the elementary schools and $3.25 at the middle school and high school. At the federal level, they have something called the meal price equity. So a paid student and a free student, the price would have to be equitable. So if the federal level was giving us, let's just say $4 for a free student's lunch, the federal would want to see our paid lunch price be at $4. There's other things to it. That's kind of the basis of it. So in the event that we were going back to free, reduced, and paid, that would have to certainly come again to school committee as a discussion topic. The last time that there was a meal price increase, I believe, was the 2018-19 school year. Yep. And we had done, I think, a 3-year plan where it went up a quarter at the elementary level in one school year, and then the following school year, it went up a quarter at the high school and middle school. So not to rain on the parade, because as of now, the sun is out and the skies are clear, but that would certainly have to be addressed if we get there.
Thank you. That's kind of where everything looks great right now, but I just want, for the committee's awareness, just to be, keep that on our radar, that if the universal free lunch goes away, it could be something we definitely will have to address and deal with. But any other questions? Great. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us that update. And
Thank you.
here's to universal free lunch forever.
Fingers crossed. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty. So next, sorry, and then laptop screen, got to go back and forth. Okay, so next on our agenda for appearances, we have Ms. Schnatterly coming to speak to us about a field trip for the TV students to California.
And I am representing Mrs. Schnatterly. Oh. That's all right.
You are definitely not Ms. Schnatterly.
I think that's a good thing.
Welcome, Mr. Carr.
Well, thank you very much, and for having me back again. So I am bringing forth her proposal once again to the Student Television Network conference. It is once again at the same place that it was last year. It's out in California. The materials that you should have in your packet are what was forwarded by Mrs. Schnatterly. It is her field trip request, along with the STN information that was forwarded to me just recently. So One of the questions that came up last year, I think that needs just again addressing is they have this set number that they put on a pamphlet. Trip is run through a company called World Strides. They're the ones that hold all the information as far as the transportation, and they're the clearinghouse for all the students who go. They put a ticket price on it that's not realistic in a couple of different ways. One, the airline travel, there's nothing that gets you from Boston to to sunny California for $450. So in talking with Mrs. Schnatterly, that price difference was almost $300 more coming from the East Coast last year. So the $2,100 that's represented in her proposal takes into account that. It takes into account some of the transportation costs, some of the taxis, some of the hotel to airport. It also takes into account there are 2 chaperones that go, and that offsets the costs. So that's the difference between what the STN number is stating and the actual number that Mrs. Schnatterly has put in her proposal. And I just want to also give a quick shout out and a huge kudos to both she and to Mr. Curran last year. They had a wonderful trip. It was an excellent time. They learned a lot. And then travel. Coming from the West Coast, there was a flight issue. They missed their flight coming from California, or their connecting flight. So as trip leaders go, they were able to take care of our kids and make sure they got home safely at a very early hour in the morning in Providence.
No, they still
Instead
had
of
to get
Boston.
back to Norwood. Oh
Yeah, so, but that was the thing is they were able to talk to the parents and everything was taken care of. But that was the sign of a successful trip is getting everybody home and making sure they had a good time.
no, definitely. Okay, so we have all the information in our packets. Does anyone have any questions on this field trip? Joan?
I don't see any insurance information.
Same question that comes up all the time, and I respect that. One of the things that everything is under the same company, so the same insurance that they had last year should apply for this. The challenge, I understand the challenge that we face with the year out request for something like this. They're still in the process of putting together some of their paperwork, some of their information. I'd be happy to send that along the moment it comes through. And it's the liability insurance. And if you look at the information from pulling up my different screens, the World Strides provides both 24-hour trip care while traveling and a $50 million liability insurance policy. And that's from last year's information. And again, I can get that to you the moment they release it, but they still haven't. I had to ask them politely to get me the flyer even for this year. So
Yeah, we can't approve a trip without insurance information.
understand.
So are you, can I just clarify, are you asking so that you can begin fundraising for this trip and then you'll come back at a later point in time to get approval for the trip? Because there's no problem with that.
Sure. In part, yes, for the fundraising, because I know Mrs. Schnatterly, it got approved later last year, so she'd like to start fundraising earlier. So yes, for that. And B, I don't know if it's possible to approve it contingent upon making sure that we have that information from World Strides.
So I'd like to propose that we approve for fundraising and hold the approval for the final documentation until we get the insurance. We've just, Mr. Kerr, we've had problems with getting insurance information for field trips, and it is something that leaves the district wide open if we don't have proof of that liability insurance.
Sure, and I
Happy
guess
to approve for fundraising so that you guys can get going on that. Don't want to block
got it.
at all.
And I just so you understand, Mr. Schnatterly, in my position, we're being asked to try and provide the trip information a year in advance. Company doesn't provide it to us yet, so we're just in this in this little dance again. So, and that's totally understandable. So I will continue to have her push the company for the policy as well. Again, my question is it something that you would need a full on presentation of the material once again, or is it something that as soon as that's passed to you, could it be approved out with either Mrs. Schnatterly there or without us present?
I mean, my personal feeling, which is not the will of the committee, but my personal feeling is it could just come back on as old business and we could just look at it and approve it.
Yeah, we
assuming
wouldn't-
there's no question.
I don't think we would need the full presentation and no, we would appear in
It's already
something
there.
like that. Yeah, it would just go on whatever the closest meeting is to get a final approval from the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, can I
As
ask
soon as
a,
you have as soon as you have the insurance information, we'll get you scheduled.
can I ask a question of the committee then? So as I said, there are certain trips, certain things that kind of come up that are planned like this that does not have that material being asked a year in advance. Would you rather us just wait and not ignore, but push back that timeline and have everything present before we present?
Teresa?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jeff. And I was actually gonna, I didn't know if I was gonna do it now or if I was gonna email Dr. Thompson later. But I actually think with the way that field trips have been kind of changing since the pandemic, we might want to look at our policy again and then also our procedures. Because we have been asking for field trips to be approved further in advance. Like at the last meeting, Mrs. Orlinsky came almost 2 years in advance, which I'm glad she did. And there's the fundraising piece that obviously we need to approve something so the fundraising can happen, and Joan's not trying to hold that up, and I agree with that. But there's something with the Coakley trip to DC that we needed to come back, and I was trying to find my notes and I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was the itinerary. There's something from them that we need. There's been other field trips that the itinerary hasn't been completed, but we approved anyway. So I think we need to look at our policy, and I think we need to look at our procedures so that we're not confusing our admins, and that we as a school committee also feel confident that we have everything that we need. But it seems to me that over the last couple of years, it's become more of a multi-step process rather than everything all at once.
Yeah, and I think that the trips are unfortunately getting more expensive, so we want to start
Yeah.
the fundraising so more students can partake in them. So,
Yeah. Oh, Kate, yes.
So, but Jeff was asking if he thought that we would need things this far in advance, but if people need to fundraise, it seems like that probably won't change, that we would still need to check in pretty far in advance. But to Teresa's point, some of these have been, each of these are come in a little different. They have different components, or the nature of them is different. So it feels like, I don't know, something to look at in terms of the policy, but I don't know if everything's ready all at once. We need different checkpoints, it seems like, because fundraising starts early, but in this case, the insurance isn't ready yet. So I don't know if it's worth looking at.
Well,
but it seems like
and that would be helpful for me. And I apologize again, knowing full well coming to this meeting that that question was probably going to come up. But being in that position of wanting to honor the timeline, and at the same time, literally not having that information yet from the company that's providing the trip.
Yeah, wasn't in your control in this situation.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'll be
I think
happy to work on getting that, and then the moment I do, I can reach out and schedule another visit to the school committee.
I think this is a perfect one that would be good for us to bring back to the policy subcommittee to look at and just kind of reevaluate where we are with the because I agree, we want to get the fundraising started as far in advance as possible, but do we need the full presentation, exactly what pieces we need to get to approve that? So I think this is definitely something we can look at.
Yep.
Dr. Shopton?
yeah, so I would recommend that the committee approve the fundraising for this trip, and then we reschedule when we have the insurance.
Is everybody
I
okay
can do
with that?
Just a clarifying question. So are the students required to put a deposit or start payments right now? When is that expected of the students?
That, if I'm not mistaken, let me pull up the information. It wouldn't be right now. It's not until the fall.
The fall.
To be quite.
Okay,
Let me just look.
if we only approve for fundraising, I don't believe then we should be collecting money from the students. So this is why I'm saying I think we need to really revisit, because there's 4 different policies that come into play with this. It's not just one. There's 4. And I think we really need to revisit it. Oh, Dave,
look,
what was your recommendation? What are you saying we should vote on?
so I made a motion, folks, that was very similar to that.
Oh, sorry, Joan.
I had made a motion at the beginning that we approve for fundraising only,
Second.
and that it comes back. Yeah.
Sorry, I did not know it was in the
That's okay.
form. I feel like I'm in jeopardy. That was not in the form of a motion. I didn't hear it that way.
No worries.
Okay, so that was seconded by Kate. So for the purpose, so is there any more discussion on that? Okay, so I will go around and who I see first. So Joan,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So that motion passes to approve for fundraising, and then once you have all that, the additional information, it will come back to us for the final vote, final approval.
I can pass
I would
that.
suspect that probably would be September or October, based on previous stuff. So
Yeah, and I'll try and turn it around as quickly as possible. And thank you for looking at the policy and just trying to figure out a way to streamline all the different parts that kind of come together with many different trips. So I appreciate that.
Nope, definitely. Thank you for working within the policy and trying to at least honor it. And then, of course, if things are changing and we need to look at our policies, we need to look at the policies.
All right.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so moving on to our next appearance, we have Ms. Hampton here to speak to us about the Oldham Playground update. We have Ms. Hampton.
Oop, you're muted there. There we go.
I know. I'm also crooked because I'm at the baseball game. So
multitasking.
Oh yeah, always. My name is Mandy Hampton. I'm really sorry that I'm sideways. It's driving me nuts too.
Oh, you're not sideways, Gus.
Oh, good. Just me then.
There you go.
Our
You're doing
voice
good.
for my day. I'm here representing the Oldham PTO. We have done fundraising for the past 2 years for an inclusive playground addition to our current playground structure. We were quoted with 2 swings and a sensory panel, and it's $9,032, and we have raised all of the funds needed for the equipment as well as the installation. The $9,032 is the total combined equipment and installation. We used money from 2 different fun runs, as well as a couple smaller fundraisers throughout the year, one of which was, now I'm blanking on it. I think it was mostly the fun runs. We had a couple, penny leprechaun coin challenge. So the money from those also went towards it for the past 2 years. I think it was approved before, so I don't know if it needs to be voted on again as well. Otherwise, the Oldham is really looking forward to working with the school committee moving forward, and we could drop a check off this week.
Great. Yeah, so I think so. We did vote on for the project before.
Yep.
So we have this before us tonight so that we can vote on the acceptance of the funds, and that would be the next step. So, Ms. Sheridan.
So like we did with Cleveland, so we had them in this week. So if you would like to either meet with myself and Paul, either you can do a Google Meet or in-house, and you can bring the check over to my office and we'll deposit it into the donation account. And then if you have your quotes with you, since it's under 10,000, it doesn't have to be 3 quotes. It could be only 1. All right. And then if the process, after we get the purchase order and such, if on the Cleveland, they wanted to give the purchase order to the vendor, which is fine with me, or we can do it. So that's up to you.
Oldham in this case.
I mean, Cleveland did that.
Okay.
They wanted to give the purchase order to the vendor themselves.
Oh, okay.
Right. But it doesn't matter to us if you want to do that. But if you want to do the same thing, you can do that. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Yep, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah. Just to confirm the timeline, Dr. Thompson. So once we accept this, once everything goes through with Paul and Karen, what is facilities thinking in terms of when this will be up?
Well, when we have to schedule with the vendor, depends on what their, install schedule is. I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, prior to a frost, depending on if they have to dig and set cement. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on assembling play structures either. But the sooner the school committee accepts the donation, the sooner we get that meeting set up, which sounds like it could definitely happen by the end of this week, if not at the beginning of next week, depending on everybody's schedule. Looking at the proposal, and we'll get moving on it as soon as we can.
Okay, because Mr. Olson had previously said, and I know things may have changed, but he was trying to align it with summer work the facilities already had to do at the Oldham. So is that conversation still happening?
That has to do with paving, and facilities knows about this project and knows that the Oldham will hopefully be last on that, or maybe that section is not paved until later.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I had mentioned the meeting with Paul, because it worked really well with Cleveland. So that's why, if Mandy and myself and Paul wanted to meet pretty quickly, because I have this week and next week, and I can chat with Paul, then we can get all that set.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's a Google Meet, I can make myself available anytime tomorrow or Thursday.
But you want to email me, and then we can set it up, and I'll
Yep,
talk.
I can do that.
Okay.
I will do that.
Sounds good.
Great.
Kate?
Yeah, motion to approve the donation for the Oldham play structure.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Joan. Okay, I have to roll call. Joan,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So that passes 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Hampton.
Thank you
Excellent
very much.
work.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Really
Have fun
happy
at
with
baseball.
it.
Oh yeah, they're winning so far, so fingers crossed.
All right. Good luck. Enjoy.
Bye.
Good night. Okay. So that brings us to the end of our appearances. And next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Yep. Let me pull up this little slide deck here quickly. Okay, so superintendent's update. So one thing that was actually brought up at our late June meeting was concerns about the play stays at the Cleveland. I did converse with Mr. Riccardi, who's the director of facilities, as we all know. There are no concerns with the actual play equipment at the Cleveland that was being discussed. The concern was from Get It Done with disposing of the railroad ties, because they're the older type with the creosote in them, and that was the safety concern and the reason for a specific dumpster for that. We have marked off the bench that could possibly provide splinters, although I don't think that really is used much by the children. So that has been followed up on and addressed. I do want to bring up and highlight that the summer programming is in full swing. I'd like to give a shout out. We were able to get an extended learning time grant this past year, which is funding our enrichment programs. So the first is our extended school year. This is a special education program for students who need services over the summer to ensure that there is not any regression. It is part of the IEP process. This year we have 92 attendees. That is an increase over previous years. We're highlighting instructional practices of embedding the academics into daily activities, to kind of bringing them to life and making them have more relevance to the children. Last week was Shark Week, in case you didn't notice, here in Norwood, and the kids enjoyed their virtual field trips to different aquariums around the country. This week is Superhero Week, so get your tights out, and Thursday the students will be wearing their costumes. Summer Matters, which is an elementary program funded by our federal Title I money. It focuses on improving literacy skills. This program has over 150 students in grades 1 through 5. So if they're in kindergarten going into 1, they would be attending that. All students participate daily in reading, writing, and math lessons, and the teachers are utilizing a small group model to meet the needs of the diverse learners in these classes. We also have a multilingual summer academy going on. This welcomes beginning English learners to an academic program where students are engaged in multiple modalities to increase English language acquisition. The Academy has about 60 students in grades or upcoming grades 1 through 6. And then Coakley Connects, which again is for students who have shown some struggle, or sixth graders, rising sixth graders who need some help coming in. We have 84 students this year. Students receive daily social studies, math, and ELA enrichment. Students have the option to complete their summer reading assignments during this time. Additional enrichment includes drama, physical education, and social emotional learning. So it really is a comprehensive program. One addition, and this really is a benefit of the extended learning time camp, we were able to extend the day and offer an afternoon summer fun opportunity. So this is our first summer offering this. It extends the day for our students. We have about 100 students in all of the programs who participate in various activities organized through stations such as outdoor games, indoor gym play, arts and crafts, music, board games, and much more. But it definitely is an interactive kind of social event, but it's a good way to complete the afternoon. And then we are still looking for some positions. We are still looking for assistant transportation director. Actually, we can take pre-K principal off of there. I've met with a finalist today. Hopefully that person will come on board soon. Behavior intervention specialist, we are still looking for that position. That is someone to help with alternatives to suspension, as was the result of the change in 37 H and 3/4, the discipline law that was changed last November. Special education positions, we need board certified behavior analysts, BCBAs, a financial analyst or two to work with Karen. We are still and always will be looking for extended day staff, and paraprofessionals are also needed. We probably need about 5 or 6 of them. So we have plenty of entry-level positions. Eli also mentioned food service. If you would like to work with Norwood Public Schools, please go to the website. In the top right-hand corner, there's a tab for careers, and you can see all the job applications. That brings you straight to School Spring so that you can apply online. So that, Madam Chair, is the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Thompson with his report this evening?
Something we really should be proud of is the depth and breadth of our summer programming this year. It really is extensive, and it's going to benefit a lot of our students. So thank you for all those teachers and staff who have come forth, the directors who are leading those programs. They are really being well done. So thanks to them.
I was just going to ask Dave. Oh, sorry, Anne-Marie.
No, go ahead, Kate.
I was just going to ask how many faculty do you think are involved? I mean, I guess I could divide the number of students, but just curious, ballpark.
I would say probably about 75 or 80. And then that's teachers, that's paras, that's assistants. We actually this year have college students who are interested in education coming back, and high school students who are exploring possibly looking at working in education, helping us out as well. We have about 8 or 9 of those students. We have students who are English language learners who have graduated, who are coming back in our multilingual camp. So it's really, a sense of pride where we're developing talent and giving them an opportunity to really explore working in these camps.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other questions, discussion, comments? Okay. All right. So moving on to the next item on our agenda, we're going into budget. So we have several items under budget. I think I was going to start off, actually swap it out of order, and give you guys an update on the budget balancing committee meeting that happened. Last week, I'm sorry, I'm like closing things on my laptop as I go because I have way too many things open. Okay, there we go. So, God, I forgot the date now, but I believe it was last week. We met 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
We met as a budget balancing committee. We don't normally meet outside of the budget crunch at the beginning of the year, but we know there's going to be some conversations that need to be had around budget town-wide in the upcoming FY25 especially, but then going forward, like doing some more forward planning. As we know, the budget, the override pledge is over. So I know there is there has been a lot of discussion out of the Finance Commission of coming up with some other not pledge, but, some guidelines that the whole town, the school can, the schools in the town can live with, just to make sure that we're living within our means, we're being fiscally responsible. So that conversation was started. It was needed by all the departments, but we finally got together before the end of June to be able to have that conversation, at least before the summer started. So myself, I attended. Teresa was not able to attend, but we had from the Finance Commission, we had Alan Slater and Maev were there. And then from the Board of Selectmen, we actually had Bill Plasko. Matt Lane is also the representative to budget subcommittee, BBC, but he was not able to attend either. And then we had, Karen and Meg is for the finance directors, and Tony and Dave were also there to represent the different boards. So, a lot of the conversation, it was really just meant to get together for like the first time before the summer and just make sure everybody was in the same room. We were also going to elect a new chair since we are in a new fiscal year conversation. That didn't happen since we didn't have everybody there, and it needs to go to the Board of Selectmen at this time. So it looks like it will be Matt Lane, but he was not present, so we weren't able to actually do that. So hopefully that will happen in the next meeting in September. So we are meeting again in September. A lot of the conversation just focused around, budgeting out maybe a 5-year plan. So the major takeaway from this meeting was at the end that Sheridan and Meg get together and start to put together their thoughts around a 5-year plan. We certainly do not expect it to be done in September when we meet again, but just to start that conversation. There was also a fair, decent conversation about how to present our budget to town meeting in order to make things more palatable, I guess, if that's, around how much special education money we spend. So there was a suggestion that we present our budget as 2 separate budgets. There's, after having spoken to a few people after that meeting, the takeaway was different. So my takeaway was that we would present it like 2 separate budgets, almost like we were already doing anyway with around the pledge, with 2 separate, if you need special education hiring, it doesn't count against the pledge type of, discussion, but that we frame it in a way to town meeting that these are the things with special education that we are legally mandated, that we have absolutely no control over and have to pay for. And this is that budget. And then there's a budget for general ed and everything else. And those are the things that are slightly more flexible. I have since heard that some other people really thought that the request was to pass 2 separate budgets, which no, that's we can't do that. That's not going to happen. So hopefully in the next couple of meetings we can make that clear to everybody else that that's not something we are willing to entertain. But if it comes to framing it better for town meeting members, to understand this, I guess. So that was really where we were with that meeting. We ended that. We'll meet in September again, and keep moving forward with trying to plan the 5-year outlook, and again, just being fiscally responsible all around for the entire town. David?
So I have 2 questions, but I want to comment first because after going to town meeting, and being there to present the budget and some of what went on there was concerning. I think my biggest thing is, and I'm talking to Board of Selectmen and Finance when I say this, for some of those people to be former school committee officials and say that they don't know how the budget works, I think is disingenuous. The process is very involved and it's apples and oranges. The town is not legally required to report in a certain way, and schools are. Special ed is a part of the budget. It was clear with that budget pledge override that special ed was different again because that's legal. And for town meeting members out there, that's something you need to educate yourself on from now until next town meeting, because that's a huge thing that you should know. frankly. So that's sort of my piece, and there's a little bit of frustration in my voice there, and I will own that. The second two to the questions is, it feels a lot like what is happening with some of those other committees is they're looking for us to sign another pledge. I think it was clear when the override was done how it was structured. We've held up our end of the bargain. There is still some monies left in that. I know that part of our budget conversation coming from the spring, around Chapter 78, and I will remind people that when towns get increases, it's because there's a state funding formula that's directly tied to schools. So, I'm concerned, one, that this is how they're choosing to say it, and two, I'm also concerned and a little disappointed with that group that we don't understand the different budgets, when that's a huge part of finance, the Board of Selectmen, and Town Hall's job. So that's the frustration piece. I guess the question is, with the long-term planning, again, due to the way laws are written, we've been doing that. That's what we do because we're legally mandated to, whether it's to plan, whether it's to have a certain amount in reserves. Like we're doing that all the time. To steal another member on this committee's term, the budget is a living, breathing thing. And we go through that, and I think that our team here does a really good job. But my second piece to that is where I think we can build the bridge, is they're talking about budget planning. Like, I would like to see what's on their side. Is this part of their push for their sort of, I guess I would call it the strategic plan for the next 5 to 10 years and what needs to be done?
Yeah, so I think that is part of this, the ask was for Karen and Meg to work together. I think that the Finance Commission is interested in having, both the town and the schools have this discussion so that it's more broad and it's not just, it does feel sometimes we end up talking all about the schools and a whole awful lot, especially when it comes to special education. So I feel like, I don't think, it didn't feel to me like it was the members of the BBC who don't understand the budgeting. It was a way to make it more digestible to town meeting members, like that whole big broad body that are voting on this. So I think that was the suggestion. It wasn't that the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom doesn't understand the budget. Like, they get it. They know. But that was what my impression was. At the same time, like, it's, we are being asked to spell out our budget. Again, we don't always see the same thing on the town side, or, it just feels very scrutinized. But I didn't feel like that was the intent of the request in that particular meeting. But I'm glad you brought up the Chapter 70 thing, because that is something that, on our side that we are going to work towards bringing forward to the BBC, is the dividing up properly of the monies that come from the state. We plan on, I think we've already, like in the past now, this past year, talked about the Medicaid, the McKinney-Vento, so there are those things that we want to, what we did talk about on the town side, what the town side did say is, well, then that you're just going to get less money from taxation. So it's all, in their eyes, it all goes into the same pot, because you're going to either get less money from the taxes because you've got all this stuff from the state, or it's to them, it doesn't matter where it comes from, we're still getting the budget funded. And I guess, getting the others on that group to understand that it's not the same. It's, it's not.
Apples and oranges. And my biggest pushback there of when we start going tit for tat is, it's a lot different on the town side when you have, however, 100 or something employees. When schools, you have the most buildings, you have the most people that work for you, there's a reason for that. So it just, obviously it's a conversation to be had, but I don't think anyone's trying to get us to sign another pledge. I think we've made pretty clear no one's really wants to do that. But I don't think it's a bad thing to want to get everybody from the town together to make a concerted effort to, maybe not sign a pledge, but to just be able to work within your means and not,
and have general guidelines. I mean, otherwise we just kind of go willy-nilly and do whatever we want, and nobody wants to do that. So I think it's just making sure that everyone's working within guidelines.
Totally, and it's not arguing with you, but I'm saying we sustainably budget. I've worked in 3 different districts. It's state law. That's how you have to do it. So I just find it interesting that there's this chorus from the town that we need to do our part when we're legally mandated to do these things. But who knows? Maybe I'll learn something this year.
Karen, you raised your hand.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say, so I scheduled to meet with Meg next week, but one of the things that I liked about the meeting was with them saying for Meg and I to work together on this, because I feel like, we've already talked a little bit on, sometimes I look at the receipts that they bring in and question, why didn't you ask me? I might have been able to give you a little input on some of that. So and also even facilities, there's some areas that I feel like maybe if we chatted about, we might have a little input into the facilities budget. So that to me was a good takeaway, because I felt like that we could collaborate a little bit on the building of the budget. And, especially when you have 2 heads together talking about finance and stuff, she might have some suggestions. I might have some suggestions for her. And so that to me was a good takeaway. I'm not so sure I agree with that the special ed and the general ed is separate, because we kind of already do that in what we're doing. So I wouldn't want to separate it out. But I did like that part of it, that the collaboration of the 2 of us to start a collaboration was good. And we've already been talking about it since that meeting.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
So like I said, we won't meet again until September, because trying to get everybody together this summer would have been an absolute nightmare. So we'll update after that. So if there's no other questions about BBC specifically, we can move on to the budget subcommittee update.
I don't see anyone else's questions, but a lot of what we met earlier today as a budget subcommittee. We met this morning, Anne Marie and I, and Ms. Sheridan, Dr. Taylor, and Dr. Thompson, and kind of recapped the BBC, planned a little bit more out how we want to approach some things, talked in more detail, like what do 5-year projections look like on our side. All this already. We talked about it before. It's a lot of the work that we've been starting and continue to analyze around the middle school building, the new building, and the staffing and the operations, special education. Obviously, the elementary study will have an impact on the budget. So just continuing to make sure we're all on the same page internally, and that Ms. Sheridan has the support that she needs as she's working with Meg LeMay on those 5-year projections. Ms. Sheridan is still working on the fiscal year 23 closeout, so she will update us on that probably in September with the last quarterly report of fiscal year 23, because she's not yet done with that. She's been working with Dr. Taylor on going through all the different grants, making sure grant money has been spent down when it needed to be. So thank you, both of you, for doing that important work. Just looking at my notes, a lot of it, Anne Marie already told you. We were just really kind of recapping and trying to plan how we were going to move forward. At our next meeting for school committee on August 10th, Dr. Taylor will be presenting the year 5 of the strategic plan. And in that is embedded something that we've been talking about, and something that also came up at BBC, which is around analysis of all the student services, so special education and other student services. So in August, we're going to be talking about starting a student services subcommittee or task force. We're not yet sure what we're going to call it, but just so the school committee knows and the community knows, really looking and analyzing what's working and where do we need more support or help. So we meet again as a subcommittee on August 8th. And then we are working on a schedule for our budget subcommittee meetings for all of next school year, trying to have a standing meeting time probably on Thursdays, but we'll get back to all of you on that in August. And then just one other thing, not directly related to our subcommittee, but as school committee knows, last week, Dr. Thompson asked for our help with some advocacy. So I jumped in and tried to help. But we all know the out-of-district tuition is increasing by 14%. We've talked about this many times. And this is something that in the spring, when Jody Smith from the union and I had met with Representative Rogers, he agreed to help advocate for that funding. But then last week, things took a little bit of an 11th hour turn that Dr. Thompson found out about through the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. And a bill has been passed in the House that ties the funding for out-of-district tuition to ESSER funding, and to districts needing to utilize ESSER funding before they can become eligible for that additional aid for out-of-district. So unfortunately, that bill did pass the House, but now it needs to go to the Senate. So where we are focusing our advocacy efforts now is with Senator Rush's office to see if the Senate can pass an amendment of the bill, because then it will need to go back to the conference committee. But you've seen the emails, the advocacy that I've been doing, but just wanted to mention that.
I think there is still some confusion around that too, whether the intent was people, towns that had unobligated ESSER funds versus obligated. And so there's definitely even just some confusion about the language around the bill and how it would actually even play out. So that piece is just frustrating right there, that it's, when different groups have different interpretations of something that hasn't even passed yet, that's like frustrating.
Big problem.
And so just for the public's awareness, all of our ESSER funds are obligated. We have plans for every dime. So hopefully that would exclude us from having to wait, if that is the case, if that is how it is interpreted. Okay.
Never mind. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions on budget subcommittee? Any other budget stuff? All right. So the next thing on the agenda was some approval of grants.
Right. So in your packet, I've got one FY23 grant for you to approve, and then I've got some for FY24. We got a lot of the allocations for the title grants and 240-262, as well as one of the 530, which is the after school, out of school time quality enhancement. So for the FY20,
There we go.
what?
You're locked up for a second.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yep.
Okay, so for the FY23, the one to approve is there was a $700 grant that from the Norwood Cultural Council, and that was to be used for the CFCE Early Childhood Fair. Marie Kidd had applied for this grant, and that was used for that fair. So that one was $700. The FY24, the grants that are, there's a larger list for you to approve there. There was the after school, out of school time quality enhancement grant. That for FY24 was $100,000 this year. Last year it was $70,000, so that increased. The IDEA, the special education grant, the allocation for this year is $1,160,672. Again, increased from last year, which was $1,084,662. The early childhood grant, special education grant, that one for this year is $30,386. Again, increased from $29,777. The Title I Improving Basic Programs grant is for this year $483,924. Last year $446,633. So we're doing really well with increasing of grants this year. The Title IIA Teacher Quality Grant this year is $80,806. Last year was $72,772. The English Language Grant Title III for the EL programs, that is this year is $89,236, up from $77,473 last year. And finally, the Title IV, which is the Student Support Grant, is $32,729, and that is up just a little bit this year from $32,398. So the increase in the grants for FY24 thus far is $164,038, which is quite surprising because we thought maybe we were going to be getting cut. So it was a nice surprise to get more money.
Yeah.
So in your packet, you can see the description and purpose for each one of the grants. I won't read those all, but if you want to see what each grant's purpose is, then you can see it in that description. And Anne Marie, in the packet is also, so what I decided to start doing is on the memo, I added a line for you to sign and the date so that I can have that for the auditors in case they ask me for that.
Okay. Can I digitally sign it?
You probably can. I can have Gina, unless you want to.
Well, I have the ability of
Oh, then yeah,
with
yes.
my Adobe to do it. So I just want to make sure that was okay.
No, that's fine. It's just for my records in case.
It's an
the
internal
auditors
record.
ask.
It's not with the-
Perfect. And I can have that for you tonight.
Great. I like
Okay.
it.
So a couple questions. So Teresa, you were first.
Yeah, Karen, the increase in the 4 title grants and then the IDA and the early childhood, is that based on our need because our population needs went up, or what drove the increase?
I'm not exactly sure. I would assume it was based on the needs because
Yeah.
they look at the population and they look at the student count and stuff. But everything that I had heard was that they were going to be chopped a little bit, and then they weren't.
Yeah, so the numbers were supposed to go down,
Right.
but with our increased high needs population, our numbers went up. So,
Oh, one other thing is that, well, two things. One is St. Catherine's has chosen not to participate in the title grants, so that would leave it. They usually get a share in some of the title grants. They are going to participate in the 240 grant, the special ed grant, but so that means that we would get their pot of money from the title grants. They have chosen not to participate. And then on the next meeting, I did get a little last minute update, the CFCE grant. I'll be bringing that to the next meeting, and that we've gotten an allocation for that of $46,321, up from last year $45,700, and that's just about close to being approved. It should probably be approved within the next week.
David?
I was just going to ask one, can we motion to approve all together? Or do we need to do it individually?
You can do them all together, as far as
Okay.
I'm concerned.
So I would like to make a motion to approve said grants for the 2024 fiscal year
And 23.
and 23.
Second it.
All right. Seconded by Teresa. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. So my screen has shifted. So Kate,
All right, yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So that is 5-0. Great. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to get back to my agenda. Okay. So moving on, the next item in the agenda, moving on to old business, long-term agenda review. So we obviously have this on once a month. The long-term agenda is linked in your packets. I have started, or I have been populating items that would happen each year. We have started populating things like quarterly updates from finance and some quarterly reviews, like our facilities and things like that we would need to come quarterly. I did add a section to the very end that says to be added because there are a couple of things. For example, MASC trainings. I know we're going to talk about, we haven't talked about goals, but that is something that we have been done in the last couple of years, and regardless of our goal status, I feel like we should continue to have at least a couple of MASC trainings every year just to keep us current on what's going on. So that obviously would need to get added in. Student advisory council appearances. I know those would get filled in after we meet with them. So there are some things that would need to get put in there. I didn't want to get too deep into this, but I just want to, have everybody at least look at the next couple of meetings. Please start to add in anything that you want to have added in. I think budget and policy updates will probably just be, de facto on every single meeting because, that is pretty standard. But if there's anything else that you are in particular a subcommittee feels should be on here based on something that's coming up that maybe even I missed, definitely please go ahead and fill that in. But Kate, you had a question?
Just wanted to add to the sort of yearly or sort of biannual policy. I mean, this would just fall into our update, but MASC updates their policy stuff in March and August. And so we can anticipate a little bit more of, depending upon how that lines up with our stuff, we would then, the policy subcommittee would be looking at that and then bringing it to the committee. So I just added on like the late March and the late August meetings, MASC policy check-in or however we want to say it.
Yeah, and those can always get moved. Obviously, if they are going to release it in March, it probably won't be coming to the committee with things to be approved right away. But we
totally, yeah. I don't know if it's like early March usually, or if it depends. Like exactly. Yep. So just as a placeholder type thing.
Yep. Any other questions on the long-term agenda? Suggestions?
Just a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Did I cut somebody off?
Yeah, I just want to, it says the budget quarterly report on August 10th, but that one is moved to September.
Oh, is it still on there? Oh, yep. And we...
Putting it the first meeting in September.
That's right. We just talked about that.
Right.
I'm moving it as we speak.
Yeah, I think we moved the fiscal year 24 budget reports, Karen, based on our meeting earlier, but when I was editing, I missed that one. So that's the final quarterly report for fiscal year 23. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we talked about it in budget, but just a reminder, Anne Marie, Dr. Thompson, to talk to Paul Riccardi, because we want to try to align the facilities budget quarterly reports with the rest of the quarterly reports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did actually go through and add him onto the same agenda meetings. So like October 25th, you'll see a quarterly facilities update.
I see.
Yep. And then I did add in one of the meetings in March, the joint facilities budget presentation. So I do have those in there. I tried to add it in. Usually the first, it's hard, right? Because sometimes you look at it and go, that's got to get moved to the second meeting. So some of these things will be in flux. The long-term agenda is definitely a living document. But I put in we have the quarterly middle school building committee updates are in there. I added like winter athletics, fall athletics, things like that, where I believe they should be based on when the seasons end. And then, calendar vote, things like that. I've added in based on our previous, it's not comprehensive. There are definitely some things I'll need to go through and add in. But if anything, again, if anybody sees anything specific, especially that you specifically want added based on, this past year we were supposed to do X, Y, or Z. We said we would, and we flew past it by 3 months. Like definitely add that in or let me know and I'll add it in.
One more question on for the September 13th. It says student activities policy. Is that where do you mean the vote for the student activities? Because that's the middle school and high school have to vote their clubs. Is that what that is? Okay.
And that can get moved to September 27th, but I remember I did pull from
the
previous
13th
year that
is
usually late August, September we do that so that they can get going with their clubs for the year, right?
I think the 13th is fine. They sent me one. I just want to confirm it, and the 13th is fine. It should be ready far before that. So
okay. See, I caught one. So I don't think we need to really belabor it unless anybody really wants to talk about anything on long-term agenda tonight. But I think we should be in pretty good shape to continue to fill this in as we go with more granularity. I think I'll just rely, hopefully, on for the elementary subcommittee when you guys have meetings to fill in at the meeting after an update type of thing.
We have. I think the place you should have added is September because our meeting is going to be after our August one.
Okay, so would you want it on September 13th or 27th?
13th.
Okay, add that in.
Anne Marie, so we are allowed to talk about the agenda offline.
Absolutely. Yep.
What is So I bombard you in a number of different ways. So what is the most effective way? Do you like when I put comments in the agenda? Do you prefer an email? Like, what of my variety of communication style do you want me to continue to give that information?
I prefer email just because then it's there. I know it ends up, and I can search it. Like, as much as it gets lost in the shuffle, like I'm good with a search bar.
Okay.
I did that even tonight. I was like searching frantically for Priscilla because she had sent me something earlier. So I prefer email, but.
And then just CC Dr. Thompson and Jamie as I have been when I send those.
Yes.
Okay. Want to make sure.
Yeah, that's useful too because Jamie will be like, "You didn't do anything with this."
Yeah.
Jamie's good at keeping us all on track. Okay, so if there's nothing else with the long-term agenda, we can move on. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the start time implementation report from Dr. Thompson.
Yeah, so there really is not any differences from the last report that was given after the survey, but I will kind of recap for folks. So we had a very successful implementation of the school start time. There was a lot of work by the task force that went on beforehand. This did give us an opportunity to kind of relook at some of our school schedules and make some changes for intervention groups and things along that line. But there were no problems with regular transportation. We did have one bus for the Prescott that was a little earlier than we wanted it to be, but we were able to adjust that bus in the first month or so, so it fell in line with the other buses. Sped vans, we do, as you all well know, have had problems with special ed van transportation because of supply issue and not be able to get vans. And in our budget committee meeting today, we did talk about several of those vans hopefully coming in for late August. The school schedules with the time change have exceeded the state mandates. And, lastly, I'll just say that, we are in a good position to go forward into next year. And I do want to commend the administrative team and the teachers that cooperated with school scheduling and looking at those things to make sure that we got off to a good start. So thank you.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Thompson on that? Awesome. All right, so moving on to the next item on the agenda, the middle school building naming process. So I will leave this one because this is on the agenda because obviously when we spoke about this at our last meeting, it was not specifically listed on the agenda. So in order to not have any kind of open meeting law violation, I stopped talking about it at that meeting in the manner that I was talking about it and agreed to put it officially on the next agenda. So specifically, as I stated in the last meeting, but I will state again, I completely appreciate and the process that we put forward. In my opinion, the process that I voted for, I was not. There were things I was not taking into account when I voted for it, and that's fair to say that I've had not a change of heart because it is what it is, but that there has been new information, having thought about it a lot more, and I was quoted in the paper with my this is gonna be in my obituary. I was quoted as nothing burger officially in the newspaper. I do feel like the process that we are going through is potentially a waste of time. If that is, and I know that I don't want to, that's very strong language, but if the eventual result is that nothing changes, I just feel like we have our time is better spent somewhere else. So that was my point in the last meeting with having this discussion. So where I raised my motion that I recanted because I didn't want to be in violation of open meeting law. But that is where I stood with that. So yes, David.
So I again want to clarify so I don't get myself in trouble that we have no horse in the race. You know, somebody tonight in that comment had said, you know, well, it wasn't billed to us that it was changing. The way the process works is the MSBA does everything and comes back to us. Schools have the naming rights, and that when it comes time, that's when they ask. The purpose of this process is to open it to all community members. I think as to where you're saying, I think obviously there has been a contingent that has been vocal, and we appreciate that, and have interacted with us, and we appreciate that. You know, but I think we go down a slippery slope when we have all of these policies and the work that this committee does, that we begin to say, oh, well, this one doesn't matter, or, you know, we'll sweep this aside. You know, in some of the people that I've spoken to, you know, it's a bigger philosophical discussion. I guess it boils down to this, that, you know, the community that I sort of borrowed the idea of having the kids get to choose from, I guess is very different from ours, and is, you know, more in support of something like that, because the people I've spoken to overwhelmingly have talked about they don't want kids choosing. Again, when you provide the name, the list of names, I don't think you're really setting anyone up for failure for that. But I guess that my compromise would be, if the committee so wishes to change that, we could change that and just do at the next meetings, maybe select a date for the open forum in the fall. But I would strongly urge the committee to, if there's a change that needs to be made, do it, but stick to the process and the policy. And for the people that did the work for this, you know, it's frustrating to see that when you get strong opinions and you get that interaction, which is all positive and has been good, to just say, oh no, well, we really don't need to go through with this. So.
Kate?
Yeah, I think there's a way to address and incorporate what you're both saying. And to the end that David's saying, sort of to amend the process in terms of the kid voting. My question would be, if there's a motion and if we're amending the process, which it is in our right to do, if one of us makes a motion to do so, we can do that given the information that we've gotten. So I don't think it faults us or our process or the integrity of our body to take new information and look back on a vote that we've had and say, okay, knowing what we know now, what would make the most sense in terms of our time, to Anne Marie's point, as well as the communities, and the potential to frustrate and sort of spend support that is so important to us in the long term for the important work that we're doing in the community. So I think we probably are more on the same page than we might guess. And when it's appropriate, you know, a discussion about what the point, given what we know now before we approved the initial process and didn't know what kind of response we would get, knowing we wanted to get engagement, having gotten the engagement that we've gotten, and for what it is, what does a public forum serve us at this point? And is there a way to amend the process that sort of, it really takes the information that we have, adapts the process for that, and still allows us to account for maybe the people that we haven't heard from, but incorporates what we now know?
Joan?
I do not understand why this committee is so adverse to having a public forum. I have been trying to have, just in general, I have been trying to have a public forum on various issues for well over a year and have not been able to succeed. And so as I hear us talking about amending the process and all this other stuff, that's great and fine, but there's something that's not sitting well with me about us wanting to engage with the community and then we got some engagement and then not wanting to engage with the community. So I may be hijacking this conversation right now into a different one, but I just don't understand. Like, I guess I just don't get it.
That's fair, but since I brought up public forum, I just feel the need to respond in that, as you know, Joan, I've never been against having a public forum. I'm trying to, in this case, my question to you guys was, what do we think we're going to get from it, knowing the response that we've had about this issue to this point? I don't know how much further it gets us, given that we've had public comment on it repeatedly. And it's people, parents. So I'm not against public forum, in other words, because I have been a proponent of it in other situations. I'm just wondering, how does it serve us at this point?
I don't anticipate the results of a public forum. Like, I don't anticipate the results of what we're going to get. I don't know. That's the whole point of doing a public forum and doing public outreach.
Teresa?
Yeah, I hear what everybody's saying, and I said it last meeting too. I really do respect everybody who's come forth to us, and I understand their point of view. And again, even tonight, it is very clear how respected Dr. Coakley was and continues to be. And it saddens me when people say we're trying to dishonor him, because we're not. I think I speak for all of us. We're not trying to do that. And I've been reflecting, since our last meeting, but I am probably more in the camp of David and Joan that we put out a process on all issues in all my school committee work. Process is just very important to me. I just think it's the way that you set expectations and boundaries and help people understand what to expect and when. And although I do know that everybody who's come forth so far in public comment has said keep Dr. Coakley's name, like Joan, I don't know if we had a designated public forum like we told our community we were going to do in the fall, and if people are anticipating, okay, that's when I can come and speak, there may be people who are planning to speak in the fall in other names. I don't know. But we did set that process out, and it does not feel comfortable to me to not at least hold a public forum like we said we were going to do in the fall. I am open to looking at the rest of the timeline and revisiting who has the final vote and not having it to the children. I think we were all very well intentioned. David, the community that you looked at, it was received in a different way, and that's okay. That's being received differently in Norwood, but I do think that where we are having our students vote on it is not fair to our students. But I do feel very strongly that we should keep a public forum in the fall.
So selfishly, I totally put this on here because I would like to up my motion from the previous meeting to vacate the process. I know I'm not going to have the support for that. So I don't want to waste my time making a motion to get it seconded, to get it completely voted down. And part of it is, one, just because we're all very busy. And I just don't want to waste time doing something that we almost, we know what the outcome would be, in my opinion. And again, this was never about removing, I know there's a lot of now you want to remove Dr. Coakley's name. This was never about removing his name from a building. It was never okay, we got to scrub this off. We start fresh. Where do we go? It was never about that. And so in my mind, it was okay, well, it was never about that. So let's just cut the crap and just leave it as is. So that was where I was at the last meeting. I could make a motion right now. I don't know that I have the support for it at all, because there are 5 of us, and whether you agree with me or not, going forward with the process is, I'm kind of jumbling and mumbling, but I guess the part of it that I want more to talk about is, I'll take questions first. I'll continue that thought. And wow, okay. David was first.
I would, I don't think it's necessarily a compromise, but as a motion, I would move to amend the process and remove the piece where our students get the final say, if the committee is so willing.
Is that an official motion?
Yes.
Is there someone seconded by Kate? Does anyone want to talk about that? You muted, Teresa.
Sorry, can I respond to that and something else that ties into it? Are you okay with that, Amory?
Yes.
So I'm in support of amending that. I said that before. So yes, I'm in support of that. And then on the topic of amending, I don't know, and I'm asking the school committee, I'm asking Dr. Thompson, I'm asking Dr. Taylor. in the vein of giving more people in the community the opportunity to speak to us, as was the intent in the fall forum. If people are feeling like a fall forum isn't the right venue, is there another alternative way to get it out to our community? And like with the survey to nominate, a lot of people are saying it was a vote, and it wasn't a vote. But do we send something else out in the fall with different messaging that is more of a vote? I guess I'm asking, rather than a forum.
If we're gonna do that, I think we just give the top two options and then have another vote, an official vote, when then that's kind of what I was saying, instead of having another big discussion about it, because I feel like people who want to say something have said something, to be quite honest with you.
So you're suggesting that instead of having the students vote, we just put it out to a community?
No, students can vote, but the community would vote, but on what we know, which are the top two choices, top two submissions already.
I think that would be a little bit. I think you're getting at the core of, now we're changing the whole process. This is taking off one piece. If we're doing that,
Well, I
then
was
we're
going off
dropping-
of what Teresa was saying.
No, I know, but just that, then we're dropping the public forum. The idea was that we have the list, we bring the list forward, people can speak at public forum. From that list, we then narrow it down, and we would take the last vote. So the thing I made is just to lop off the kids get the final say. But again, I would just echo that if we're going to do that, I think going down a slippery road of, we have these processes in place, people do the work, and then we wait till afterwards to change it.
Sorry. So Teresa, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, before David made his motion, which I'm not against his motion, but before he made his motion, what I was raising my hand to say is amending it in a different way. We don't have to go down that path. But to go back to David, what you're saying, I'm just looking at the timeline that we had voted before. So on June 21st, which obviously we're a little behind because of tabling this till tonight, we were supposed to review the names, which we did do that on June 21st. And we were supposed to create a list to present it at the forum in the fall. We have not yet done that. We did ask Dr. Thompson to put things on the website. I don't think I saw it on the website yet. So just as a reminder, there was a request from the school committee to put, these were the names, and there was supposed to be the number of nominations per name. That was supposed to be shared on the website with the community. So I still think we should do that. And then our timeline that we approved is that we would have a public comment night in September, to be determined. If we are still going to go ahead with that, I think we need to set the date soon, now, or poll people and get the date out. And then after there, we were supposed to have the school committee have a list of top 3 and then go to students. So David, are you saying just take off the student involvement with the amendment? Yes. Okay.
Kate.
So then you would have to also amend the part that says that the school committee makes the final decision before it going to the students. But then I have a question. Teresa, you said you use the word public comment. Does it say public comment or public forum?
It said public comment night, but with our policies, it would be a standalone public forum.
Okay, where we would then interact with people, because we've had a bunch of public comments, was my only point.
Right. If we were going to have a standalone public forum, then we could interact.
Joan?
I will never say that we should cede the final vote because, as I have said before, Ducky McDuckface passed in Britain. And not that I think our community will do that, but we should never, just as a matter of practice, we should never cede the final vote so that we don't end up with Ducky McDuckface.
Dave?
Well, to clarify, I said the final, in my suggestion, it was of 2 choices, neither of which would be 2 choices that we gave, neither of which I would imagine would be Ducky McDuckface.
Right. All right. So I'm just going to go back a little bit. We started this process. We were asked by, or the committee members were asked by members of the community to explore looking at the naming of the building. The committee has done that. We have gotten responses that have been overwhelmingly indicating that at least a certain population of the community does not seem to be supporting that. I have not heard personally from anybody telling me that they think it's that we should be going forward. I don't know if the committee has gotten that, but I think the question here is we've started a process. People have spoken at this meeting multiple times. They have emailed multiple times. They have filled out the name suggestion survey, which is not a vote. You're absolutely right. Overwhelmingly with a certain name, which is the current name. So I guess, the first question, and whether we're going to decide this tonight or on August 10th, I don't know. But, is this a process based on the feedback that you have gotten through public comment, surveys, and what have you that you want to keep pursuing? I know that there was people with good intentions who said that we should look at renaming the school. We have done that. You've gotten feedback. So that's question one. Can we put out a survey that people can fill out with multiple choices? Sure. It would be imperfect because it's not obviously going to be a ballot box with somebody checking off names. Theoretically, people with multiple email addresses could vote multiple times, if you will. I strongly suspect that the outcome would be probably very much pretty lopsided at this point in time. So, those are kind of the two questions that I see, is based on, the good intention to start this process because you were asked to start this process. But since then you have gotten feedback. I think last time there was a discussion about, certain things that the committee has stayed on. I will draw the distinction that those items that the committee showed the intestinal fortitude to stick with were focused on improving things for students. And I will make that distinction and commend this committee for being willing to stand up and do what is best for students. I'm not going to name what those two are because I don't feel like getting a whole bunch of emails about whether I think they're good for students or not, but you know which ones I'm talking about. This I don't feel falls into that category. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Dr. Coakley or Dr. Savage. I've heard stories about them when I came here. And Norwood loves its history, loves its buildings. Those are things that I think that, we have public comment for the reason for people to come and speak and share their opinions and views with the school committee. I haven't heard, normally when there's something that is not a settled case, you at least hear some things from the other point of view. I have not heard that. So I don't know as if you, living in the community, going to the bake shop, on the soccer field, baseball field, softball field, have heard elsewhere. I do not know that, but I think that should be something that we're considering.
David.
So there is a motion on the table, and I will just remind people that read the policy, because this timeline is based off of a policy that is a school committee policy.
Teresa.
Yeah, just Dr. Thompson, thank you for your perspective. I don't want to dishonor Dr. Coakley. I don't want to take his name away from him. And if we weren't building a new building, this would not be a discussion. I think it's important to say that. We're not talking about removing somebody's name from a current building. But if you look at the nomination form that did go out, one of the names, it's not close to Dr. Coakley, but one of the names that is on there a fair amount of time is Norwood Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read the comments that people wrote with why they were saying Norwood Middle School, I think there are some really valid points and empowerment behind them, because people are saying it's going to unify all of Norwood Middle School. People are saying we only have one middle school, just like we have one high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's some comments there, and there's a number of people who did say Norwood Middle School, that if we were going to at some point, instead of, giving it to the kids and narrowing it down to 2, and then hearing people come to speak to us at a public comment in the fall, I think hearing people speak, if we put it out there to Norwood Middle School is something I would want to hear. I would want to hear what people have to say in response to that.
Okay, so again, the reason I put this on there was exactly what Dr. Thompson was saying is, how am I going to phrase this? I just want to word this well. That that's why I was quoted as nothing burger in the paper, because, all intents and purposes, like I don't see that this is going to be something in the end that's going to change. I appreciate that we put a process into motion, but the policy is not for us to. We're working within the policy, so to David's point, yes, there's a policy and we're working within it. But if we had chosen to never even start this process, we wouldn't have been beholden to the policy. We wouldn't have had to put out some kind of a process for a name change. We're not mandated to. So it is perfectly within our purview to stop the process if we wanted to. We started it, we can stop it, and that's not breaking the policy. We are working within the policy with the process that we have put forward. So that's fine. I absolutely align with Dr. Thompson on this one, where I just feel like I'm not hearing and I am in the community, and I am not hearing from a single other person on the other side. I know that the names were suggested, but I have not heard from a single person that doesn't have a strong feeling that it stays Coakley. Now, whether it's those people don't feel strongly enough to talk to me about it, or there's not conversations about it, that's telling too. However, having said that, I appreciate that there's a motion on the table, and we definitely are going to vote on that. But it's the last thing, I just want to kind of explain why I haven't made the motion from the last meeting, because of this conversation. I feel like there's enough feelings towards the process that we put forward that I'm not going to get the support to just end the process right now, which is what I would like to do, because I just feel like in the end it's gonna, we have heard all of the from the people that we're going to hear from. If this committee wants to have a public forum as part of the process that we voted on in September, I think we set the date now, we set it up, and hope that we hear from the other side, or from other alternative thoughts. If we don't, then it will, it is what it is. But I just wanted to explain why I hadn't actually made the motion that I made at the last meeting, because I have thought about it. Obviously, we did put forward a process. I want to honor that process. And I can just see the writing on the wall that there's 3 people for process and 2 for stopping it right here. So I'm not going to waste anyone's time. But so having wasted enough of your time, there is a motion on the floor to amend the process to at least forego the student voting at the end. So any more discussion on that specific piece?
Was that I think that was seconded, but can you just remind me, did I second that? Did Joan second it? I forget where we were. Joan.
Kate.
No, not me.
Kate did.
David made the motion, Kate seconded it. Okay.
Yep, Kate did. Okay, so I'll start where I see you. So Kate. Voting on the
Yes. Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Joan.
Yes.
And I am a yes to that as well. So that passes 5-0 to amend the process to remove the student voting at the end. So I don't want to belabor this, but how do we want to move forward with planning that public forum? Because we need to get that on the schedule.
My suggestion would be you pick either the first meeting or second meeting in September and start the meeting a half hour early and do a 30-minute open forum there.
You think 30 minutes is enough after the number of public comments we've had so far?
You're gonna need an hour.
I thought this was going to be a standalone public forum. I would not tack it on to one of our meetings.
Okay.
I would say, so we wanted to take into consideration the open house dates, which we do have, because we wanted to avoid those. But because of the hour, because I know we still have a couple more things we have to get done. Anne-Marie, do you have the capacity, or could you ask Jamie tomorrow to send out a doodle poll to the rest of us for September, excluding the open house dates, so that we can hopefully by next week?
Yeah.
And then, Dr. Thompson, I know you're going on vacation, but who in your office could then help us get that date communicated next week once we finalize it?
Maybe Joe Kidd.
Okay. So if we work on having like Emery through you and Jamie pull us tomorrow, finalized by the end of the week, and then early next week through the tech department, we could get that date out.
Yeah. I think we could do that. I think we need to do that. We need to get it. And then date was more important, but I'm guessing we should hold this at like the high school or something. So that might actually play into it, whether the high school auditorium is available.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm not sure who the best person to find that out is.
Facilities.
Facilities. Okay.
Yeah, we can. Priscilla could help with that too.
Okay. Great. Okay. Anything else on this topic before we move on? Everyone's smirking. Thank you for indulging me and putting this back on. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is strategic plan update from, it says 22-23. Yes, 22-23. Yes, the 22-23 strategic plan update. And I believe Dr. Taylor is going to lead this one.
Correct. Good night, everyone. Everyone has the document, and I know because it's late, I'm just going to read a couple of highlights from each of the sections, because I know we have a couple of other things to cover. So this is the strategic plan that was developed, I guess, 4 years ago. Well, we're heading into the fifth year of the plan. This is essentially sort of a recap of what year 4s look like. And in August, we'll talk about what revisions we've made for the 5th and final year of the plan. So I'm just going to go through the strategic objectives for each one, and then I'll pull out 2 or 3 highlights just so that the public gets a sense of what are some of the progress that we've made, because we actually have done some pretty good work over the past year. So the first strategic objective is the investment in resource allocation. And just a short description, the purpose here was to create a purposeful and sustainable budget to provide sufficient funds to operate and improve the Norwood Public Schools. And some highlights here. I think it's definitely worth noting that we were able to pass the FY24 budget without laying off any staff, where other districts have most certainly had to do that. So I think that that's definitely worth mentioning. In terms of recruiting, increasing the number of diverse staff, myself and our HR support from the town have been collaborating together and attending career fairs around the state, trying to recruit and spread the word about how great Norwood is. And then we have also been really thankful to town and town meeting for approving that funding for the elementary study that we will be able to launch an RFP for this fall. Now, if we go to the second strategic objective, which is around facilities and operations, the purpose here was to create facilities that are centers for innovation and comprehensive educational experiences that will foster and promote problem solving and creativity for both staff and students within a safe environment. And some of the highlights that we have here, we are fully 1-to-1 in grades 1 through 12, which is definitely also something to praise. We are piloting touchscreen Chromebooks for kindergarten. And part of the reason we've been able to do that is because of that expanded learning time funding. We are getting more touchscreen Chromebooks down to the Willett this fall, where they're ordering, I believe, 50. In addition to the what they already have. So we're well on our way there. Another thing worth highlighting is that technology, we have everyone knows, a very strong technology department, and we have set refresh cycles. The team has been really great about swapping out old devices, making themselves available to provide PD and support to teachers and staff throughout this year. So we are super thankful to Joe, Kid, and the tech team for that. Now, if we go to the third strategic objective, which is focused around innovative instruction and personalized learning. And the purpose here is to implement core curriculum through instructional practices that will inspire lifelong curiosity through collaborative problem solving and authentic learning. Some of the highlights here are the core curriculum. We now have core curriculum in all four core subject areas. So ELA, math, science, and social studies. And the rollouts have been overall going pretty well. The other thing worth highlighting is that we have significantly decreased the use of non-district approved technology tools. And that's giving us more data to make effective decisions around what tools we should be keeping, software is very expensive. So having a tight hold on what we're using, when we're using it, which tools are having the greatest impact by restricting the number of tools that are being used and tracking that is really helping us make good budget decisions. So we're thankful for that. Another highlight to add here is, let me check. Another focus, as I know Dr. Wise shared when he was here, our core instructional practice, the focus for this year has been on small group instruction. And one of the ways in which that we've been supporting that has been in establishing data teams. And we've definitely made some progress there. So definitely still more work to do in strengthening our staff's ability to use data and be comfortable with data literacy. And so that making progress there, but still work to do. And if we go to the fourth one, the fourth strategic objective is focused around programs and pathways. And here the goal was to create pathways that enable students to explore and pursue their interests and passions while contributing to the overall good of the community. So some highlights here, our healthcare innovation pathway really is a flagship for our district. We have full dual enrollment for the students who are in that pathway. The high school has expanded eligibility criteria for dual enrollment at our local community colleges. We don't have exact numbers for that, but we can get that information. And one of the shifts that we made, so one of the challenges that we had was that the original goal was to get career exploration happening from elementary through high school so that students can make informed decisions when they're applying to high school in 8th grade. And so we've definitely got some refinement to do around how to get career exposure in elementary. One of the shifts that the middle school made was that the career fair that they normally have for 8th graders was pushed down to the 7th grade. And also some other career exploration activities and using Naviance and et cetera has been pushed down to 7th. And they're seeing some progress there. So those are the highlights for that. And then the fifth and final strategic objective is around safe and supportive schools. And the goal here was through the implementation of social emotional learning and culturally relevant and trauma-informed practice, create a culture of care, inclusion, and safety for every student and their family in the Norwood Public Schools. So some highlights here, we have completed 2 years of Highlander culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy. And that has led to, that's a multi-year process, as we know. And so we are proud to say that we have an increased number of conversations around culturally responsive practices and trauma-informed learning as a result of that training. And the other highlight that is covered here is around family engagement and communications. And based on the communication survey and some other surveys that we've done throughout the year, I'm happy that we invested in Parent Square because it seems to be a hit with the community. So we did learn that we need to do some refinement around getting a daily digest versus a text message every time something happens. But that's work that we can do this fall. And those are just some of the highlights. I'm happy to take any questions.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute. I was just going to say, any questions? Teresa, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Taylor. I sent you my questions in advance, and I know there are a couple areas that you need to get back to me on, which is totally fine. Just as a reminder, and this goes back, Anne-Marie, to our long-term agenda planning as well, that I do think that we should schedule an executive session in the early fall, solely focused on safety and review our CAP and some of the things that, are coming out of the strategic plan and objective 5.
I do have that on the long-term agenda for, so hopefully that we'll get that. Do you think we need to plan one separately, or I mean, I have it right now as part of.
Yeah, you're gonna want. Yeah, you're gonna want to have people there from the team, and
Yeah. Okay.
unless you're gonna do it before the meeting, some afternoon or evening.
I think the last one we had, Joan, was like 2 hours, right?
I'm pretty sure it was a standalone meeting and that it was 2 hours.
It was.
Yeah, it was in the high school library.
High school library. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I would also add, as I shared in the email, there is new information and guidance coming out from the Massachusetts Chief of Police Association that I think we definitely should keep that information in mind. So, having a standalone meeting will give us an opportunity to dig into that and compare it to what we have to see what additions we need to make.
Right. And there are a couple members of the original school operations plan that are looking at specific aspects that have changed in the law over the last year or so, and how the plan reflects on that. So that is all work that's happening over the summer. Most of it will happen in August. So.
Made that edit to the long-term agenda, standalone executive session.
Just have Jamie pull us for that too.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Taylor? Kate, did I see your hand? Kate.
Not a question, just a thank you for that. It's helpful I think, for the public to hear you do those highlights. So that's great because the strategic document, the plan it's a big document, and to have it to have highlights like that, I think is really helpful if people are following along.
Right.
And then Anne-Marie, I'm not, we can probably talk about this later, but I feel like I've got 4 standalone meetings now that we're meant to have. And I guess you probably got that too. And maybe that's normal for the fall time, but I just, at some point, is that right? And how do we, are we going to get it all in? That's just my little red flag. That's it. Anyway, thanks, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah, it's not fun trying to fit that stuff in with everyone's schedules, but yeah, it is fairly common to have these pop up here and there and especially we talked about, we'll need, some MASC trainings to schedule, and there'll be some other.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't talk about with long-term agenda was it's potentially rejiggering our May and June meetings that Teresa and I kind of talked about earlier. But so that we don't end up in this situation where we're doing 5-hour meetings like we did this year. We could talk about that in a little bit. We have time. But yeah, it's hard to get everybody together. Okay, any other questions specifically on the strategic plan?
Welcome back.
Yeah, wrong button. It's not the one that I meant. And then immediately I'm like, crap, rejoin. Okay, so anyway, so moving on to the next item. Of course, now I was in the long-term agenda, so I'm going to find my actual agenda. Here it is.
Committee.
I'm sorry?
Policy subcommittee update.
Policy subcommittee update. So Kate, do you want to give us the policy subcommittee update?
Sure, happy to. The policy subcommittee met yesterday at 10. Our next meeting is on the 8th at 1. We talked about the MASC updates, which are still slow going, and the reason for that is because it's matching document to document and looking at verbiage changes. One thing that we are going to have for next month ready is any policies that were fast-tracked, changes that were fast-tracked in order to be in the handbooks, which we approved. We kind of need to retroactively look at those so that we can update our policy manual. So we're getting a list of those together for us to look at for August, just so we can push those along. And then we've got some additional administrative help to try and get the bulk of the rest done, because other things have taken priority, like grants and things that are very important to, of course, this is when my kids decide to start trying to come in the room. I apologize if you hear anything. So looking for that. Just sort of a note that I put on the long-term agenda is that now we're already coming up on that sort of next, what we expect might be a next round of updates from MASC. So it's just going to kind of bump up against itself until we smooth the processing part of this out. The next thing on the agenda was the PTO template. As you saw, we've now seen 2 rounds of the real, the KCD in process, and Karen and Dr. Thompson and Dr. Taylor are collaborating to show us a draft of the procedures / checklist / guidelines that we're going to provide to the principals and PTO for the September start, given everything we've learned, and with certainly driven by the financial and oversight mandate of that policy that KCD has brought to us. But we think that all the right players are in the discussion now, and we've seen how it needs to flow, and so that's been super helpful, and we're almost there. I think that's really the substantive bit of what we talked about. We talked about those things sort of in their minutia. Our next meeting, like I said, is on the 8th, and told you guys what to expect. I'll just say that there's also been discussion about making sure that the policy, that we're in fact, making sure we're keeping up to date in a way that's most efficient and satisfactory to the whole committee, given the biannual MASC updates, as well as what our expectations, what has been set out as expectations by this committee in the past. So that is in an ongoing discussion. I think that's the gist of it. Anne Marie, was there anything, or Dr. Taylor or Dr. Thompson, that I missed from yesterday's meeting?
No, I think you've.
No, I think that covers.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thanks, guys.
So the next item on the agenda, obviously we don't have that for you tonight, the PTO project template. We had it on the agenda in case we were ready to go for this meeting. And since obviously we need to be posted a little earlier because of the Tuesday meeting, we left it on there. But that, as Kate said, we're working on to get to everybody by the August meeting so that it's ready to go for the beginning of the school year. So going to just go right over that one. So on to the next topic. So Dr. Thompson is going to talk to us about the communication survey results.
Yeah, let me find it here. Okay, so these are the results for the communication survey. We had 211 responses and 69 comments. There was an open response section at the end, and I will kind of go through quickly these. 91% were parents or guardians, and 9% were a staff member from Norwood Public Schools. Did I miss one? I think nope. Okay. So these are the types of communication most often received, and you can see the parent swear posts about a quarter of the way down the page made up 74.4% of the messages going out. Second to that is, parents actually viewing things that are posted on Parent Square, maybe not necessarily a post that came to them. Newsletters or s'mores. The s'more newsletters are still up there in the third position, but you can see that emails and Twitter and Facebook fall behind those. So this was the key question. Parent Square is an effective communication tool for me and my family. We 79.2% or 0.1%, either strongly agreed or agreed with that. That is a tremendous improvement over our previous communication methods, which were kind of scattered. So we were able to make them more effective by having kind of one main tool. You can see that the disagree and strongly disagree are very small portions of that pie chart. What forms of communication do you use to communicate with staff who work with your children? And again, email is still 94.3% of that, although direct messages, and this was one of the key things that why we wanted to bring in Parent Square, especially for parents whose English is not their first language. It does translate, so you can see that is in second place. I wouldn't expect that it would replace email right away, but that direct message has definitely made a significant improvement there. So do you have any thoughts you'd like to share regarding Norwood Public School communication methods or strategy? So what it is, I took these 69 open response themes and kind of put them into 4 themes. And these are in order of what the main answers was. So the first was a request to streamline messages, or there's too many messages. So we need to dig a little deeper into this. Some of these might be, more time training parents on how to customize Parent Square. For individuals, there's a lot of things that, I keep getting text all day. So there seems to be some improvement on maybe training parents on how to customize how they get those messages. The second overarching theme that was coming through was Parent Square was a big improvement. There's always room to grow, but it was a big improvement. Third was difficulty with personalization of messages and delivery in Parent Square. And several people feel there's too much reliance on social media channels, multiple channels of social media. Anything that we publish on social media usually is also put out on Parent Square on the website as well, so that's kind of redundant. So from this and our first set of takeaways, and we will start looking at this later on in the summer, beginning in the fall, but establish and identify communication methods by classroom and school. We really need to, now that people have some experience with this, we need to have teachers in schools say, this is how we're communicating. As I mentioned before, more training for parents on customizing Parent Square, and examine the practice of sharing community information. There was a theme in there with, there's too many things coming across, too many flyers. Obviously, we want to be able to support events in the community, but maybe we look at, that comes as one kind of digest or one thing maybe on Wednesdays. We used to have, virtual backpack Wednesdays, and that's when people would go look for things. So maybe we look at some sort of standardizing of that instead of flyers, if you will, coming at random times. So basically, we need to do a little more work with codifying our methodology, helping parents with the training on the tool, on the Parent Square tool, and how to use it and how to customize it, and think about some ways structurally to make so that on Tuesday afternoons or Wednesday afternoons, that's when things are going to come home from the community. So that is our first communication survey.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Kate, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, it looks like we're looking at training parents. I just wondered, I'm sure it's already in there, but in terms of teachers, I have some anecdotal experience with teachers who were just confused or, new to the Parent Square game. And so I'm just wondering, if we've got plans, of course, for refreshing and improving some of those things.
Yeah. This was a very quick turnaround. Actually, so we I have to give Joe Kidd especially in the technology department, shout out for really turning this around, because I think we looked at it in July, right? Late June, July. So that's not a normal cycle. You would have these discussions normally in February and then start in the spring, and then bring it in the fall. So it really was fast track. So to have that change go as well as it did, and be received as positively it has been, I think is a major thing. But there definitely is more training to do. There actually is they're running a free online, summer camp for Parent Square, which I'm going to look at, possibly trying to attend, so that I can learn more of the tricks of the trade. But yeah, we definitely need to get teachers a little more comfortable, especially around the direct messaging. So.
Thanks.
Great. Any other questions about this survey? Awesome. All right. So then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our subcommittee assignments for 23-24. We had to bump that from previous meeting for time. So in your packets, I put in the document that I started, which is basically last year's document with a few tweaks. Obviously, we already did our reorg, and I am your chair, Joan, your vice chair. But then there are the other items on here, and I just want to, I think essentially we're going to stay the same. So I just want to confirm with everybody who is listed here that they are willing and able to continue on these committees, and dedicate time to these committees, or if there's any requests for changes, anything that people don't think is correct. Or is everybody just pretty much willing to go on with what's here? Kate?
Yeah, totally willing to go on with what's there. I realized that as sort of a newer chair to policy that wasn't a part of a really big effort that happened, that it's may be a bumpy ride. So I'm just laying it out there that I'm open to any ideas, or I wouldn't take it personally if changes were suggested, but I'm happy to keep going and keep learning or whatever. So I'm just keeping that transparent.
Well, I am willing to stay on policy with you, so that I'm not running and hiding.
No, yeah.
So it hasn't been that bad, unless somebody else has a burning desire to step onto policy. Yeah, I see less shaking heads. No, so there that would stay the same. So I'll just go through them real quick. So obviously, budget subcommittee, I'll stay on with Teresa with that. Again, if anybody wants to jump on and say they want any of these, you love how you budget. Then policy, myself and Kate. Middle school building committee is Teresa and David. Teresa is on the middle school working group. The elementary study subcommittee, David and Kate. So I've been signing warrants, and I think we already established that that's okay with everybody, that I continue to do that. That's been working. School health council, we have Teresa and Kate. Teresa is the school liaison to the Impact Norwood and Minds Matter. I do capital outlay. It just kind of goes with all the budget. Budget balancing, Teresa and myself, because budget subcommittee. Custodians contract and facilities MOU, so that Kate and I had done that last time. I think that worked well. Unless somebody wants to jump on that, I think that's fine for us to stay on, to keep on them. Sheriff's Task Force on Juvenile Mental Health. I think it's actually a much longer name than that. Teresa and I. This is another one. This one's not limited, So if anybody else wants to join on that, or just wants the link at any time to see any mental health resources, please let us know. But I'm happy to log onto those once a month, once or twice a month, ish. Once a month. Sometimes I think they did catch ups that were close to each other sometimes. And then Student Advisory Council. So currently it was so this one we do need to talk about a little bit. It was Teresa and myself and Kate. It really should be all of us meeting with them as often as we can, like at least once a month. But I do think we need to name like a liaison to the Student Advisory Council. I don't know if anybody, what everyone else feels about that, but I feel like we do need at least one person who's kind of their point person. Teresa?
I didn't raise my hand.
No, it's up.
Oh, it is? Yeah. That was accident. Okay, anyway.
Freudian slip.
I mean, it kind of defaulted to me. It's not hard to coordinate with the students. I don't mind being that piece, but where I would really love, and we were kind of figuring out our rhythm, but the agenda planning and just making sure we're all internally on the school committee on the same page with what we're telling our SAC would be helpful. But, at least to start the school year, because I kind of left off with them, in June that, hey, I'll get back to you in September. So they're expecting me to. And we do still have to, finalize the discussion around an advisor, which is what we're supposed to do for them. So I can stay like that liaison right now while we figure out that conversation. If others are still, coming with me to meet with them and plan the agendas.
Yeah, Kate, are you okay staying on that, or does anybody else want to jump on that? Because it's usually a date, because we meet with them usually during WIM block, so that's the only thing that's a little tricky to meet with them, like what, 10, 19 in the morning.
Yeah, and I think maybe one of the things we have to talk about with process is making it easier working with them so that other members can meet them in the evenings as well. So
yeah, we were obviously focusing a lot on making it work for them, but it's because they're doing student council and they're doing sports and they're doing madrigals and so there's so much going on in these students' lives that but yeah, I'd like to see much more participation from the rest of the body with the students. It should be really close to the entire committee meeting with them at least once a month.
Every other is what the law
is. Every other, right? Every other. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so I'll leave pretty much everything here as is. I did think of something as well. I know we all have a lot of meetings, a lot of things going on. So if there's any other way too that we can utilize, maybe Jamie, like if anybody wants to sign up for a weekly digest of like your meetings this week are, or anything like that, let me know. I think we can, we could utilize her in that way, text messages. I know sometimes lots of things get lost in email because they're coming in fast and furious, like whatever works for people, just to make sure that we're keeping up on these and then of course, if there's something that, I think in a couple of cases we have like obviously set subcommittees, but if there's cases where your people think they can't make a meeting and we are able to substitute in another committee member, like definitely let us know, just, far enough in advance that we can. We want to get as much representation from this board as possible, especially when it comes to where we're on with other boards and other, where it would be helpful to have, a full 2 committee members to have 2 votes in certain meetings.
Yeah.
So I did throw a couple at the end. I think I pretty much already covered that. The budget transfers I did for June of 23. I didn't need to do any. So in case anybody needs to hear that, there weren't any. And then I think we said we did not need we still need the stipends, correct? Because we still haven't. That is something that will come up.
I think we were waiting to hear from the stipend committee.
Right, and Joan, you were still willing and able on that one. Perfect.
Yes.
So I'm actually going to just remove the one.
Two things that I put a note on in the document or in the agenda. So Joan and I had worked together as like the goal for school committee, and just so we're understanding, is the school committee expecting us to do more work, or are we going to schedule? I know we don't want to schedule more meetings, but are we scheduling a workshop in the fall, or is the committee asking Joan and I to meet again in the fall and do more work on the goals? We need some direction.
So it is in our long-term agenda to schedule a meeting at the end of August, beginning of September, to go over to do goals and planning. So to your point, Kate, about lots of standalone meetings.
Yeah, can I suggest that Teresa and Joan create something to respond to it's kind of already exists, plug in suggestions. Like it doesn't feel like it's stepping on toes to me. And then we just go like, cause we've already kind of talked about the committee priorities and then just respond to that.
Well, we already did that.
That's done and it's been sent to everybody. I just don't think it made it onto an agenda. That's why we need more direction.
Yeah, because every time we talked about it, it was like we're going to need a much longer time to talk about this document, so it never made it onto an agenda.
Oh, so we're talking about, I mean, I've seen that document. I just.
Yes, we're not talking about creating. We're talking about like a powwow about that document.
About that document. Do people want something removed? Do people want something added? Is there stuff missing?
It was just a way to have a conversation around that document outside of the business meeting, since the business meetings can get really full, and so we can dedicate it. So maybe it's an hour outside of the business meeting that we have a discussion.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Does that sound like so? Doodle poll city.
Yeah, I think poll is for that too.
Yeah, so we'll have Jamie send out a couple of doodle polls. Well, I mean, just in general availability, we can kind of pick and choose from the times that are available for September for public forum and an hour workshop, just to kind of hammer this out and so we can finally get it done and approve it, maybe approve it at the September 27th meeting.
Yeah, and then the other question was around the legislative advocacy, which I've been doing, and I'm happy to continue working on it, but does anybody else want to join me in that initiative?
We can help with the advocacy.
I think it does need to be something that is more formal. Like you've been doing it, and so like formalizing it in kind of a tandem. Teresa and Joan is probably at this point needed, just because of all the stuff that's been going on at this point. So,
what did Joan say? I didn't hear.
That she would do it.
Oh,
unless Kate, you were at a Bernie. I mean, we could take 3. This is not a limited.
No, but I agree. I think if it's formalized somehow that like the other day when I was traveling, but when Dave was like, action item needed, like if you guys had a way to put out an EPB when we should all do an email or something like that, like if it was sort of systematized in that way, then it, I think we could, however we can help before you've done, had to do everything or whatever. I know a lot goes into that communication, but sort of like bringing out the cavalry, we add that piece to it. I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. Is there anything else? So obviously we'll discuss other things like negotiations committees another time, or later. But is there anything else that I'm missing on here besides with the school committee goals and legislative advocacy?
No.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm capturing what everyone is doing.
I think that's enough, Anne-Marie.
Well, if you're already doing it, put it on a list, and that everybody knows that this is what's going on. I think that's what I was trying to, obviously want everybody to fill in where they need to fill in, but also, so we spread it around. Okay, perfect. So that is that. If we have nothing else to discuss on that, I'll move on to the next item, which is closely related. The next item on the agenda is, it says school committee email policy, and that is poor wording. I apologize for that. That's what I had Jamie put in here. It is actually not our email policy. This is actually around our procedure of having the chair respond when the entire committee is emailed. So in an effort to spread the wealth in the committee, Joan had volunteered to do that for us as on behalf of the committee as vice chair. And I'm more than okay with that. So I just wanted to bring it to the committee and just make sure that everybody else is okay with that. I like I said, it's not technically a policy. It's just our procedure and our that we follow. But I feel like it was something we should bring back to the committee for a vote, just to make sure everyone's comfortable with. Instead of me responding on behalf of the committee, Joan would respond on behalf of the committee.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, Anne-Marie. I mean, I talked to you about it, but the only reason why I think it lives in writing is in our chair handbook. So it would, if we agree to it, it should just be updated in there that it's the chair or vice chair based on the delegate chair.
Yeah. Kate.
I just would offer that maybe we create language that says whoever's first available, like say there's a time when Joan is traveling or something, that, you know, of the two of you, whoever's first available, so that
Yeah.
it's about the timeliness.
We've done that in the past too, where you know, the chair has said to the vice chair, "I'm traveling, you do it." So there's we can do that back the other way as well for coverage.
Great.
So if that's okay, could anyone want to make a motion to make that official?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Second by Joan. All right, Kate,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, so then the last item on our agenda is this new school physician position. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, it's actually not a new position. It's a new
Not a new position, new
right.
person.
Yeah, so we are required by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health to have a school physician. School physician oversees nurses, answers, consults with the nurses, approves standing orders. So our we had one for many years from Norwood Hospital when Norwood Hospital was destroyed. We have been scrambling and trying to find one. We were able to get Dr. Jeremy Schlossberg, who works at Dedham Medical in Norwood through Atrius Health. He is a pediatrician, and he is willing to be our school doctor. So the school committee needs to approve the appointment of the school physician. So that is our purpose right now.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who's that? I gotta keep second. Any discussion? Fabulous. Kate,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that passes 5-0. Okay, final item is we have gotten down a consent agenda and acceptance of donations.
Yes, we have a $400 donation from the Women's Community Committee Incorporated, and this is going to the Coakley Middle School.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Great. Kate,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so that passes 5-0. So that brings us to school committee addenda. Kate, do you have anything this evening?
Nope.
Teresa,
Not this evening.
David,
No.
Joan,
No, I have nothing.
and I have nothing as well. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. Unfortunately, we do have to step into executive session. We will only reconvene for the purpose of adjournment. We do meet again Thursday, August 10th. We will be fully remote for that meeting as well, so that you will see us on our squares. And thank you very much for joining us this evening, and have a great night.